Have you ever had a moment that completely changed the direction of your life? A single night that shifted everything you thought you knew about yourself, about love, about the walls you'd built around your heart? My name is Alex Chen, and I'm 28 years old. For most of my adult life, I've been the practical one, the guy who plans everything down to the minute, who keeps his emotions in check, who never takes risks he hasn't calculated first. I work as a financial analyst at a tech startup in Seattle, and honestly, I was good at my job precisely because I never let feelings cloud my judgment. That was before Denver, before the conference, before him, before the night we shared a hotel room. And everything I thought I had under control came crashing down in the most beautiful, terrifying way possible. Let me take you back to where it all began. The email came on a Tuesday morning, sandwiched between quarterly reports and budget forecasts. Alex, I need you in Denver next week for the Regional Analytics Conference. It's a great networking opportunity, and the company will cover all expenses. I'm also sending Marcus Rivera from the marketing team. You two should coordinate. Details attached. I stared at the screen, my coffee cooling in my hand. Marcus Rivera. Of course, where I was reserved and methodical, Marcus was spontaneous and charming. Where I wore neutral tones and kept my hair professionally trimmed, Marcus showed up to meetings in burgundy blazers and let his dark curls fall however they wanted. He had this energy that filled every room he entered, a warmth that drew people in like moths to a flame. And I'd been avoiding that flame for 8 months, not because I disliked him, the opposite, actually. I'd developed what I can only describe as an inconvenient, all-consuming crush on a coworker who probably saw me as nothing more than the numbers guy who occasionally provided him with analytics for his campaigns. I'm gay. I've known that since college. Been out to my close friends and family for years. But at work, I kept that part of myself carefully compartmentalized. It was easier that way, cleaner. No complications, no awkward conversations, no risk of making anyone uncomfortable. Marcus, though. Marcus had this rainbow pin on his laptop bag. Casually mentioned his ex-boyfriend during a team lunch once, and seemed completely, effortlessly comfortable in his own skin. It was magnetic and intimidating in equal measure. The thought of spending 3 days in Denver with him made my stomach flip. I typed out a professional response confirming my attendance, then immediately opened a new tab to check the hotel booking, the Seattle Tacoma. International Airport was packed the following Monday morning. I arrived early, as always, with my carry-on packed precisely and my boarding pass already downloaded. I found a seat near the gate and pulled out my tablet, trying to focus on reviewing presentation notes. Alex. Hey, that voice. Rich and warm. It's just a hint of a California accent from his college years in San Diego. I looked up to find Marcus weaving through the crowd, a leather messenger bag slung over his shoulder and a coffee cup in each hand. He was wearing dark jeans, a cream-colored Henley that hugged his athletic frame, and that disarming smile that made something in my chest tighten. I figured you'd be here early, he said, offering me one of the cups. Grabbed you a coffee. You drink it black, right? I blinked, surprised he'd noticed. Yeah, thank you. No problem. He settled into the seat beside me, closer than strictly necessary in the half-empty gate area. I caught the scent of his cologne sop, something woody with notes of citrus, and had to actively stop myself from leaning in. So, Marcus said, stretching his legs out in front of him, 3 days in Denver. Should be interesting. Have you been to this conference before? First time, I admitted, wrapping my hands around the warm cup. You? Same. I'm mostly going for the digital marketing workshops. But I heard the keynote speaker this year is supposed to be amazing. He turned to look at me directly, his dark eyes bright with genuine interest. What sessions are you planning to hit? We fell into easy conversation about the conference schedule, and I found myself relaxing despite my nerves. This was the thing about Marcus. He had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. Like what you had to say actually mattered. It was dangerously easy to forget myself around him. The flight was smooth. We sat together, Marcus insisting on taking the middle seat even though I'd been assigned it, claiming he didn't mind. Our elbows brushed on the armrest more times than I could count, each touch sending small electric shocks through my system. Get it together, I told myself. You're a professional adult. It's not a teenager with a crush, except that's exactly what I felt like. We landed in Denver around noon, the Rocky Mountains visible in the distance under a bright October sky. The conference hotel was downtown, a sleek glass building that promised luxury and convenience. The trouble started at check-in. I'm sorry. Mr. Chen, the front desk clerk said, her fingers flying over the keyboard with increasing concern. There seems to be an issue with your reservation. My stomach dropped. What kind of issue? It appears that due to a booking error on our end, we don't have a room available under your name. The conference has brought in far more guests than anticipated, and we're completely sold out. You're joking. The words came out sharper than I intended, stress bleeding into my voice. My company booked this months ago. I understand your frustration, sir. Let me check with my manager, actually. Marcus stepped up beside me, his hand briefly touching my lower back in a gesture that was probably meant to be reassuring, but instead made my brain short-circuit. What about my room? Is that still available? The clerk checked. Yes, Mr. Rivera. Your reservation is confirmed. King bed, mountain view. Perfect. Marcus looked at me, something unreadable in his expression. We'll share. Problem solved. I stared at him. What? It's a king bed. Plenty of room for two professionals who can act like adults. He said it casually, like he was suggesting we share a taxi, not sleeping arrangements. Unless you'd rather spend the next hour on the phone trying to find another hotel in a sold-out city during conference week? He had a point. Every hotel within reasonable distance was probably packed, but sharing a room with Marcus Rivera, the man I'd been actively trying not to fantasize about for the better part of a year, that was a complication I absolutely had not prepared for. I struggled to find a reasonable objection that didn't sound absurd. Are you sure? I don't want to impose, Alex. His voice softened and he tilted his head slightly, studying me with those perceptive eyes. It's fine, really. We're both professionals. It's just sleeping. What's the worst that could happen? Everything, I thought. Everything could happen. But out loud, I just nodded. Okay, thank you. I owe you one. Buy me dinner tonight, and we'll call it even, he said with a grin, then turned back to the clerk. We'll take the room. The room was beautiful floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Modern furnishings in soft grays and blues, and yes, one very large king-sized bed dominating the space. One bed. For 3 nights, with Marcus, I was absolutely, completely doomed. Not bad, Marcus said, dropping his bag on the luggage rack. Dibs on the left side. I'm a right-side sleeper. Sure, I managed, setting my own suitcase down carefully. I'm going to freshen up before the opening session. The bathroom was a welcome escape. I splashed cold water on my face, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My black hair was slightly disheveled from travel. My dark eyes looked wider than usual, and there was definitely more color in my cheeks than normal. Pull yourself together, I commanded my reflection. This is just a practical solution to a logistical problem. Marcus is being a good colleague. That's all this is. The pep talk helped, slightly. The opening session, and first. Round of workshops passed in a blur of presentations and networking. I took detailed notes, made connections, exchanged business cards, all the things I was supposed to do. But I was hyper-aware of Marcus's presence throughout the day. He was across the room during the keynote, laughing at something a colleague said. He was 2 tables over at lunch, animated and engaged in conversation. He was everywhere and nowhere. And I couldn't stop tracking him like some kind of lovesick radar by the time dinner rolled around. I was exhausted from the effort of pretending. Everything was normal. Marcus had suggested a steakhouse a few blocks from the hotel. We walked there together as the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that seemed almost too beautiful to be real, Marcus said as we settled into a leather booth. 8 months working together and I feel like I barely know you outside of spreadsheets and data models. I glanced up from the menu, caught off guard. What do you want to know? Everything. He smiled, and there was something boyish and genuine about it that made my defenses crack slightly. What do you do for fun? What's your story? Why finance? Marcus kissed like he did everything else, with complete commitment and devastating effectiveness. His mouth was warm and tasted like lime and possibility. His hand slid into my hair, angling my head to deepen the kiss, and I made a sound I'd probably be embarrassed about later, but couldn't bring myself to care about now. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. "I've wanted to do that for 8 months," he whispered. "I've wanted you to do that for 8 months," I whispered back. We kissed again, softer this time, sweeter. Around us, the bar continued its rhythm, but we were in our own bubble. Finally acknowledging what had been building between us all this time, "We should probably talk about this," Marcus said eventually, though he didn't move away. "About what this means." "About work," I agreed. "But maybe not here? Back to the hotel?" I nodded, and we gathered ourselves, paying our tab and calling a rideshare. The drive back was charged with anticipation. Our hands linked between us on the seat, our knees pressed together, back in the hotel room. The atmosphere shifted from charged to nervous. We sat on the edge of the bed, not quite touching, the weight of what we'd started settling over us. "So," Marcus began, turning to face me, "I want to be clear about something. This isn't just physical attraction for me. I mean, you're gorgeous, but it's more than that. I like you, Alex. Your brilliant mind, your dry sense of humor, the way you care about getting things right, the way you listen when people talk. All of it." My throat tightened with emotion. "I like you too. So much it scares me sometimes." "What scares you about it?" I took a breath, trying to articulate the fears that had kept me guarded for so long. "I've never dated anyone from work before. I've never mixed my professional life with my personal life. And you're so open, so confident in who you are, and I'm still figuring out how to be that person. What if I'm not enough? What if this doesn't work and everything gets complicated?" Marcus reached over, taking my hand in both of his. "Okay, first of all, you are absolutely enough. More than enough. Second, yes, dating a colleague comes with complications. We'll have to be professional at work, set boundaries, maybe eventually tell HR if this turns into something serious. But Alex," he waited until I met his eyes, "I think you're worth those complications. I think we could be worth it." "You really think so?" "I really do. But I need to know you're willing to try, to be open to this, even if it's scary." I thought about everything I'd learned over the past day and a half, about how Marcus made me laugh, made me think, made me want to be braver, about how right it felt to wake up in his arms, about how tired I was of compartmentalizing, of keeping the fullest version of myself locked away. "I'm willing to try," I said. "I want to try. With you." The smile that spread across Marcus's face was incandescent. He pulled me closer, wrapping his arms around me in a hug that felt like safety and promise and home all at once. "So, we're doing this?" He murmured against my hair. "You and me? We're doing this," I confirmed, pulling back just enough to see his face. "Though maybe we should establish some ground rules. About work. About how we want to handle this." "Definitely. But maybe tomorrow?" Marcus's eyes had that mischievous glint I was coming to adore. "Tonight, I just want to enjoy being close to you without overthinking it. I can work with that." We spent the next hour just talking, curled up together on the bed. Marcus told me about his dreams of starting his own marketing consultancy someday, about his complicated relationship with his family, about the volunteer work he did with LGBTQ+ youth. I told him about my secret love of terrible reality TV, my fear of never being good enough, my hope that maybe I could learn to be as comfortable in my own skin as he was. "You know what I think?" Marcus said, playing with my fingers absently. "I think you're already more comfortable than you give yourself credit for. You just needed the right person to feel safe enough to let your walls down. Is that person you?" "I'd like it to be." As the night deepened, the conversation turned more intimate, not physically, but emotionally. We shared stories about past relationships, past hurts, the fears and hopes we'd been carrying. "I had a boyfriend in college," I admitted. "David, we dated for 2 years and I thought it was serious. but he wanted me to be more outgoing, more social, more not me, I guess. He said I was too reserved, too analytical, that I didn't know how to just feel things. Marcus's expression turned fierce. He was an idiot, I laughed softly. Maybe, but it stuck with me, you know. That fear that I'm too buttoned up, too controlled, that I can't give someone what they need emotionally, Alex. Marcus shifted to face me fully, his hands cupping my face with such tenderness it made my eyes sting. You feel things deeply. I can see it in the way you listen, the way you care about getting things right, the way you've been protecting your heart. That's not being unfeeling. That's being careful with something precious. And the fact that you're willing to take a chance with me, that takes more courage than you know. A tear escaped, sliding down my cheek, and Marcus wiped it away with his thumb. I don't want you to be anyone other than exactly who you are, he continued. The quiet, brilliant, thoughtful man who somehow makes spreadsheets sexy and who looks at me sometimes like I'm the only person in the world. That's who I want. You make me want to be braver, I whispered. Then we'll be brave together. We kissed again. Slow and deep. A promise sealed between us. Eventually. We got ready for bed, the routine now familiar, but charged with new meaning. When we slipped under the covers, there was no pretense of maintaining distance. I curled into Marcus's side, his arm around me. My head on his chest where I could hear the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. This is going to be interesting, Marcus said softly. His fingers tracing patterns on my shoulder. Navigating this at work? One step at a time, I said. For now, let's just enjoy this. I can definitely do that. In the darkness, wrapped in his warmth, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, tangible hope that maybe I could have this someone who saw all of me and wanted to stay. Marcus. Yeah, thank you. For being patient with me. For seeing me. He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. Always, Alex. Always. I fell asleep feeling safe and cherished. The future uncertain, but somehow less frightening than it had been just days ago. I woke up on our final morning in Denver, to sunlight, and the realization that I was completely, utterly happy. Marcus was still asleep beside me. Our bodies tangled together in a way that felt natural and right. I allowed myself a few minutes to just watch him, the way his lashes cast shadows on his cheeks. The slight smile that played at his lips even in sleep, the rise and fall of his chest. How had I gotten this lucky? As if sensing my attention, Marcus's eyes fluttered open. When he saw me watching him, his smile widened. Morning, he murmured, voice rough with sleep. How long have you been awake? Not long. I was just thinking about how surreal this feels. Good, surreal, but surreal nonetheless. Marcus reached up, brushing his thumb across my cheekbone. I know what you mean. 3 days ago, I thought I'd be spending this conference pining from a distance. Now I'm waking up with you in my arms. Life is strange and wonderful. We have to go back to reality today, I said, voicing the concern that had been nagging at me. Back to Seattle, back to work. How do we want to handle this? Marcus was quiet for a moment, thoughtful. I think we should be honest. Not make a big announcement or anything, but if people ask, we don't hide. We tell HR when we get back there are policies about workplace relationships, and I want to make sure we're following them. And at work, we're professional. This doesn't change the quality of our work or our commitment to the company. And outside of work, his smile turned tender. Outside of work, I'd like to take you on proper dates. Get to know you even better. Introduce you to my friends, meet yours. Build something real, if you're open to it. My heart swelled. I'm very open to it. Good, he leaned in, kissing me softly. Because I'm in this, Alex. For real. Me too. The final day of the conference passed in a blur of closing sessions and goodbye conversations. Marcus and I maintained our professional demeanor in public. But there were small moments of brush of hands when passing each other coffee, a shared smile across the room. The way we instinctively gravitated toward each other during breaks. During the closing keynote, as the speaker talked about the importance of taking calculated risks in both business and life, Marcus reached over and laced his fingers through mine under the table. It was a small gesture, but it felt monumental, a quiet declaration that we were in this together. The flight back to Seattle was relaxed. The pressure of uncertainty lifted. We sat together, Marcus, in the middle seat by choice, our shoulders pressed together as we talked about everything and nothing. "Can I tell you something embarrassing?" Marcus said as we reached cruising altitude. I could use the leverage. He laughed, nudging me with his shoulder. "Remember that team meeting 3 months ago? When I spilled coffee all over my presentation notes? The one where you had to improvise the entire quarterly marketing review? That one. I spilled it because you walked in wearing that navy suit, and I got so distracted, I knocked over my cup. You looked unfairly good that day. I felt heat creep up my neck." "You're making that up." "Absolutely not." "Ask Maya from accounting. She saw the whole thing and gave me so much grief about it later. I had no idea I had that effect on you." Marcus turned to look at me, his expression soft. "You have all kinds of effects on me, Alex Chen. You have since the beginning." The elderly woman across the aisle gave us a knowing smile, and I realized we probably weren't being as subtle as we thought. But for once I didn't care. Let people see. Let them know that this brilliant, wonderful man had chosen me. We spent the rest of the flight making plans. First official date would be Friday night. Marcus knew a Vietnamese restaurant in Capitol Hill he'd been wanting to try. Weekend after that, I'd introduce him to my hiking group. We'd take things one step at a time, building our relationship alongside our professional lives. "What are you most nervous about?" Marcus asked as we began our descent into Seattle. I thought about it carefully. "I think I'm nervous about disappointing you, about you realizing I'm not as interesting as you think I am." "Not possible," he said firmly. "But I get it. Fear of vulnerability is real." "Can I tell you what I'm nervous about?" "Please." "I'm nervous about coming on too strong. I tend to dive into things head first, and I don't want to overwhelm you or make you feel pressured. I need you to promise me you'll tell me if I'm moving too fast or if you need space." The fact that he was thinking about my comfort, about pacing things in a way that worked for both of us, made me fall a little bit harder. "I promise," I said. "And you promise to be patient with me while I figure out how to be more open?" "Always." The weeks that followed were a study in balance and discovery. At work, we maintained professionalism. We had separate desks, led our own projects, and were careful not to show favoritism or let our personal relationship affect our professional judgment. We scheduled a meeting with HR, disclosed our relationship as per company policy, and were relieved to find out that as long as we weren't in a direct reporting relationship, there were no conflicts. Our colleagues were supportive. Some had apparently suspected there was something between us for months. Maya from accounting won the office pool for guessing when we'd finally get together, which was both embarrassing and hilarious. Outside of work was where the magic happened. Marcus took me to that Vietnamese restaurant, where we shared pho and spring rolls and talked for 3 hours. I took him hiking in the Cascades, where he complained about the elevation, but admitted the view was worth it. We spent Sunday mornings at farmers markets, evenings cooking together in his apartment, late nights talking about our dreams and fears. He introduced me to his friends, a tight-knit group of creative, passionate people who welcomed me with open arms. I introduced him to my hiking group and my college roommate, Ace, all of whom immediately loved him. With Marcus, I learned what it felt like to be truly seen. He noticed when I was overwhelmed and needed quiet time. He celebrated my small victories at work. He encouraged me to take up photography again, a hobby I'd abandoned years ago. He made me laugh, challenged me to be braver, and held me when my anxieties threatened to overwhelm. And I learned how to show up for him too. How to be present, how to express affection, how to let my walls down brick by brick. 6 months after that fateful conference, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, adjusting my tie. It was a special occasion, Marcus's 30th birthday party, and I'd spent weeks planning a surprise gathering with his friends and family, but that wasn't the only reason. My heart was racing. In my pocket was a key, continue 6:56 a.m., a copy of my apartment key. To be specific, we'd been talking about taking the next step, about making things more official. Marcus stayed at my place most nights anyway, and I spent weekends at his. It felt like the natural progression, but more than that, it felt like a declaration. A statement that I was all in, that I trusted him with my space and my heart. "You're overthinking again," I told my reflection. "He loves you. You love him. This is a good thing." The party was at a rooftop bar in downtown Seattle, twinkling lights strung overhead, and the city spread out below us. Marcus's face when he walked in and saw all his favorite people gathered was absolutely priceless, shocked joy, giving way to that brilliant smile I'd come to love. "You did this?" he asked, pulling me aside once he'd made his rounds. "I had help," I admitted. "But yes. Happy birthday." He kissed me, right there in front of everyone, deep and sweet and full of promise. "Thank you. This is perfect." "You're perfect." "I'm really not, but I appreciate the sentiment. You are to me." Later, as the party wound down and we stood at the edge of the rooftop looking out at the city lights, I reached into my pocket. "I have something for you," I said, suddenly nervous despite everything. "Another gift?" "Alex, this party was more than enough. It's not a traditional birthday gift." I pulled out the key, holding it between us. "It's a key to my apartment. If you want it, if you're ready for that step." Marcus stared at the key, then at me, his eyes shining with emotion. "You're asking me to move in with you?" "Not necessarily move in right away, I mean. We can talk about timelines and logistics and what makes sense, but yes. Eventually, I want to wake up with you every morning. Not just some mornings. I want to build a life with you, Marcus. If that's what you want to? Are you kidding?" He laughed, a slightly watery sound, taking the key with reverent hands. "Of course, that's what I want. I love you, Alex. I've been in love with you for months." My heart stopped, then started again, faster than before. You do?" "I do. So much. And I know we said we'd take things slow and we don't have to rush anything, but yeah, I'm in love with you." The words I'd been holding back, afraid to say too soon, tumbled out. "I love you too. I think I have since Denver, maybe even before. I was just too scared to admit it." We kissed as fireworks went off somewhere in the distance, the timing almost too perfect to be real. But it was real, all of it. The love, the promise, the future we were building together. A year after that conference in Denver, Marcus and I stood in the lobby of the same hotel, checking in for another regional conference. "Think they'll mess up our reservation again?" Marcus teased, his hand finding mine. "I'm not taking any chances," I gestured to the front desk clerk. "We specifically requested a king bed, together. On purpose this time." The clerk, a different person from last year, smiled knowingly. "Confirmed. Room 1247. Enjoy your stay, gentlemen." As we rode the elevator up, I marveled at how different this trip felt. Last year I'd been terrified, guarded, convinced I had to keep my feelings locked away. Now, I was standing next to my boyfriend, my partner, openly and without fear. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked, reading my expression the way he always could. "About how much can change in a year? About how sharing a hotel room with you was the best accident that ever happened to me?" "It wasn't entirely an accident," he admitted with a grin. "I stopped walking." "What?" "I may have asked the conference coordinator if there was any way we could room together for budget reasons, and I may have been told there weren't any budget concerns, but that booking errors do occasionally happen." He trailed off, looking unrepentant. "You schemed to share a room with me?" I preferred to think of it as creating an opportunity for us to finally connect outside of work. Was I wrong? I pulled him close, kissing him right there in the hallway, not caring who saw. "You were absolutely, perfectly right." Inside our room we set down our bags and took in the familiar view of Denver spread out below us. "You know what's wild?" Marcus said, wrapping his arms around me from behind as we looked out at the city. "A year ago, I was so nervous about telling you how I felt. I thought maybe this would be just a conference fling, something that burned bright and fast and then faded. I never imagined we'd be here, planning to move into our first real place together. Meeting each other's families for holidays, building an actual life." I turned in his arms, cupping his face in my hands. "I never imagined I could be this happy." that I could feel this safe being completely myself with someone. That's because you are completely yourself with me. The brilliant analyst, the terrible karaoke singer, the guy who cries at animated movies, the man who loves with his whole heart, even when it scares him. All of you. And I love all of you. I love you too, I said, the words easier now than they'd ever been. Thank you for being patient with me, for seeing me, for that first night when you suggested sharing a room and changed my life. Best suggestion I ever made. We spent that evening not at conference events, but walking the streets of Denver, hand in hand, revisiting the bar where we'd first kissed, talking about our future, the apartment we'd just signed a lease on, the trip to meet Marcus's extended family next month, the possibility of adopting a dog. As we walked back to the hotel under a sky full of stars, I thought about the journey that had brought us here, about the fear and the risk and the ultimate reward of opening my heart, about how sometimes the best things in life come from unexpected moments like sharing a hotel room with someone you never expected to fall in love with, and about how love, real love, isn't about being perfect or having everything figured out. It's about finding someone who sees you completely and chooses you anyway. Someone who makes you want to be braver, more open, more fully yourself. I'd found that in Marcus, and I was never letting it go.